How you doing, folks? Happy 1st of May. Happy May Day to you. Know who knows where the time goes. Who knows where the time goes? Now, we were talking last week about how it's going to drag in the first week of the top six. The previous week, the preview pod of the Motherwell game, talking about it was going to fly in. It's 3 weeks, 5 games. It's going to go past in a flash. Now it's 2 weeks and 4 games, but it has started to drag a bit given the result. We ended the month of April on. Maybe a lot of you will be pleased it's May, pleased for the opportunity to turn the calendar, a kind of psychological moving on, going on there. We try to get away from Motherwell, and the way to do that is go and play the team at the top of the league on their own patch. Our last clash with Hearts this season, this most epic of seasons for the Jambos. How's it going to end for the Teddy Bears? This is going to have an absolutely massive bearing on it, but who knows where the time goes. I don't know how you dealt with things this week. Thanks very much for all of you who watched my podcast I did during the week there about how, Rangers still do have it in their own hands if we're just talking about finishing above Celtic, and then we'll worry about finishing first or second after that. It was just a way of kind of trying to move it on for myself. I was hoping it was a bit cathartic, and thanks to everybody who gave it their time and the feedback as well on the post below that. It really helps. It really does help. It's good to talk. But the weather either has or hasn't helped. It's been an absolutely beautiful week. A bit more dull today, but still warm, lovely bright spells, not a lot of rain about. It's been glorious, absolutely glorious weather. Sometimes that's worse when you're feeling horrendous inside. It's like beautiful weather is mocking you. Sometimes prefer a bit of the old pathetic fallacy where the weather is reflecting that it's not heartbreak, but serious doubts going on inside you. It was not enjoyable last Sunday at Ibrox. It was enjoyable in so many other ways. The atmosphere that the fans put together there was quite magical, but Rangers kind of letting us down. And Motherwell being very good as well, but sometimes you don't know, is the good weather going to take my mind off it, or is it just actually kind of rub it in my face how bad I'm feeling inside? And this week I've tried my best. Was forced to get outside anyway because this bit of mad sunshine we've been getting in Glasgow means everybody's out with the lawnmowers because suddenly your grass and hedges and everybody's out there. It's like they're all sprouting. Suddenly you're noticing you've actually got a garden. Not got a very big garden myself, front or back, but I was forced to get out there and attend to stuff, and that let me kind of fool myself into it either being the summer holidays when the season will be over and all the talk will be about the World Cup, or I was going back to Holmfirth. Remember, I was down in Holmfirth. I'm sorry if I sent you 3 different podcasts from my holiday home. It's not my holiday home. The place, the Airbnb, holiday cottage, whatever you want to call it, that we'd hired for the week down in West Yorkshire, this wee village called Holmfirth, where they used to shoot Last of Summer Wine. I'm not a Last of Summer Wine fan. And also that behind me, that's not Shakin' Stevens. I've had to say this before. That's the second time I think I've had the old Killing Joke album up there. That's Jazz Coleman. But I've always thought he looks like Shakin' Stevens in the front of that album. This old house ain't gonna need to change the paint. It's not Shakin' Stevens. You're not getting against Shakin' Stevens. I would never live behind a green door. And I was down at Holmfirth. I sent you 3 different. That kind of the fixtures, the post-split fixtures come out. So I did a podcast while I was on my holidays. That's a service you're getting while I'm on my holidays. And I did a preview for the game against Falkirk. And then also I was down there and I watched the game against Falkirk, the Falkirk game. We won 6-3 down there. And I've been trying to kind of summer holidays, this weather, let's be kidding, it's the summer holidays we're in and the season's over. But I've been wanting to go back to that feeling because we were on 4 wins in the trot when I went down to Holmfirth. And then the Falkirk one, you think we've blown it, but no, it turns into one of the most exciting wins of the season. So it was great, it was magical, and the whole time I was in Holmfirth, I was listening to Fairport Convention. Who knows where the time goes? Magical, beautiful voice of Sandy Denny, which I've just discovered the last few months. You'll definitely remember those posts from Holmfirth, those pods I sent for the holiday home was getting quite close to the equivalent of Facebook posts to all your pals about the lovely meal your man's taking you on, that kind of thing, wasn't it? It was getting a bit boasty. Oh, I'm having a great holiday. We all have great holidays, Alex. There's no need to shove it in our face. It ended up being a bit like that. But there was also the one I did from the site, but the 150th anniversary could have been, potentially, of Rangers' last match at Burnbank, our first enclosed ground. Just the sites in the West End here, just Great Western Roads out towards Charing Cross. So I went down, I did a wee podcast from there, and as I was walking along the road, it took me to Rupert Street, where Sandy Denny had recorded a few folk tracks back in the day. Tragic, Sandy Denny dying far too young. But this was because I've been reading this biography. I've read it and I finished the whole thing, a biography of John Martin, who started off as a folk singer and then was kind of a jazz man, a blues man. He's great at trip hop and all that towards the end of his life. He drank himself to death, really. But he could turn his hand to anything. Musical genius, kind of raised in Glasgow and half Glasgow, half England. But an amazing musician and a horrible person. But a fantastic subject has always fascinated me more than the music. But I found the folk revival of the 50s and that, you kind of found your way into that, and then this Sandy Denny get mentioned in this book of Graham Thompson. Graham Thompson, Small Hours, The Long Night of John Martin. Get it. If you like your music, it's fantastic. And it mentions 19 Rupert Street, and I'm thinking, that's just along the road, that's 19 Rupert Street. And I used to stay quite near there when I was at uni, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I was reading about stuff that happened there, and that led me to Sandy Denny. What's she all about? And I listened to a few of the songs she'd recorded there. They're on YouTube. Just put in 19 Rupert Street, and that's what will come up. They were lovely. And then I was reading about the Fairport Convention. I've heard of them. Richard Thompson. Oh, the fella that gets in touch here, Kubrick-esque, who gets in touch on the posts, on the pod. He mentioned Richard Thompson. I'm saying I didn't know who it is, but I do know who Richard Thompson is. Now that I see him, now I've looked him up and all that. And he formed basically Fairport Convention. And he was in that. Sandy Denny joined them as a lead singer, and then this beautiful song, Who Knows Where the Time Goes. I was listening to that when I was doing in Homeforth. I was listening to that when Rangers were magical, when everything was going great. Everything in the garden was rosy, and I've been out in the garden this week, and I've been trying to listen to it again. I listened to it in the shower and all that. It's like when you're on holiday, you get holiday romance. When you're married, you better not get a holiday romance, but you can have holiday romances with other stuff. You get into other stuff. You have a wee romance with different types of food that you wouldn't normally eat. You have a romance with maybe different types of books you wouldn't normally. You get the time to do it. You can chill out a bit. Well, I was having a romance with different type of music. I used to dread the thought of folk music. In Fairport Convention, they invented British folk rock. And I was on Half Bricking. I listened to the whole album. This album, then they go into the Legion Leaf, is where they really set out their agenda with the folk. Sorry, it's not that I don't want to talk about this game against Hearts. I'm confident. I'm very confident. But it's been a bad week. It's been a bad week, and I was going back to. I was doing holiday in Homeforth. I was listening to Who Knows Where the Time Goes is one of the great tracks from Fairport Convention. And I was reminded of it this week as I was out in my garden having to do a wee bit of work. And, it's a song about, I think the weather's changing to winter, and I murder songs regularly on this podcast. I couldn't do it to Sandy Denny. Her voice is just too amazing, although I have already done it with one of the tracks from Legion Leaf when I come back up for Homeforth on this pod. But it's like, across the evening sky, all the birds are leaving. But how can they know? It's time for them to go. No, I can't say. It's time. How can they know it's time for them to go? Before the winter fire, I will still be dreaming. I have no thought of time. For who knows where the time goes? Who knows where the time... It's absolutely gorgeous, and I think it's because about autumn or summer becoming winter via autumn. It's got that sadness, but you kind of fighting against it. And perhaps a kind of pathetic sort of way, and that's how maybe we feel this week about. That's a really bad mood we were in last Sunday. It felt as if the league was over. We'd mucked it up, and of course it isn't. And just that expression of optimism against the odds, kind of heartbreaking type of optimism. It was hitting home this week. I was pretending I was back in Homeforth as I looked at the dandelions. And I'm back, I know the dandelions. I've got this wee patch of grass it's tiny. I've actually got a lawnmower, but that's from our previous house, because this would... the idea is basically the width. It's the area of the bottom of the lawnmower. You have to just push it up and down 2 or 3 times. That's it. Your grass is cut. It's a bit, I don't know, a quarter of the dimensions, a quarter of the area of the 6-yard box at Ibrox. If that, maybe a fifth of the size of the 6-yard box. It's tiny. But it lets me sit and look at a wee patch of grass if I want to. And I was noticing the dandelions, and they're a wild flower, dandelions. I looked this up, are they a flower or are they a weed? And the minute you put in dandelions on your search engine, it comes up with, are they a flower, are they a weed? Everybody else in the world is searching the exact same question. And they're a wild flower. Some folk think they're a weed, some folk think they're beautiful. And it's, even though they're yellow, bright kind of yellow, almost gold with the green underneath them, and there's little with the little daisies, the little white petals on them are dotted about as well. So it's a very green, white, and gold image. Maybe it doesn't suit me, but I think the fact that they're seen as weeds, because they're right, you just can't get rid of them. We're older than Celtic or Hearts. We've been doing this longer than either of the two of them. We shared the first. We went down to the wire on the very first league title that was ever. Do you see Dumbarton? Dumbarton have announced that they're calling it the Rock, and they're going back to the original colour of old gold. It become yellow over the years because it's a great video for Dumbarton. Put it in YouTube today. And that's who we shared the very first Scottish League title. 1890-1891 season, and we're used to it going down to the wire. We're used to having to fight all the way to the very last kick of the season. So we're that weed. You can't get rid of us. Our roots are in far too deep, and to us, we're beautiful. Celtic probably want to be known as a dandelion, the wildflower, because they're the wild rover and that kind of thing. But no, that's total establishment team, aren't they? In this kind of Scotland these days, Celtic are the more corporate than us these days. We've proved that by everything we went through in 2012. So I think we're the Dandelions, and it's nice. What I've noticed, just through clinging on to the weather, hoping it would cheer me up this week after the result against Motherwell, was the Dandelions at night time. That little patch of grass I've got at night time, as it gets to no, it wasn't even dusk. And I looked and they'd all shut. No, they'd all shut up. There was no, you couldn't see the yellow because they'd shut themselves up for the night. And then the next morning, it was just, the sun had it was just like hitting the wee kind of heads at the edge of it. It wasn't touching the grass, but it was but no, that's it. We're shut for business. The sun's away. But then the next morning, it was a sunny day. The next morning again, it was a Wednesday morning, whatever. The way that the sun hits our house, the back of the house doesn't get any sunshine until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And first thing in the morning, the dandelions are all open. They're in total shade, more shade than they were at the early point of dusk I'd seen them the night before. But they're all totally open. They're all totally open. They're ready for business. So they know the sun's coming towards them. They know it's daytime. They open up to the promise of sustenance. I think that's what we've got to do. I think that's what we've got to do with these last 4 games of the season. The dandelions know the difference between dusk shade and morning shade. We know the difference between a collapse and a title challenge, and having a mere glitch before glory. Just don't actually know what's happening in this one, but let's hope it's a lot. I mean, I think I'm trying to forget about Motherwell and nature and folk rock. It's all very ethereal, kind of translucent. It's got a real beauty about it. It's a kind of optimism to it, but it's hard. But a more kind of airy-fairy, takes you outside of yourself. It's not, having to work it the way I usually would. But the music that even Radiohead's too kind of hardcore for me just now. I need something properly ethereal to keep me floating above the pain of what happened against Motherwell. So I've been listening to the folk rock and enjoying the nice weather. But we were feeling last Sunday that it was Steven Gerrard's first 2 seasons. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, the end of his attempt at the title. Michael Beale's reign when he came in November, December after Gio, and Philip Clement in his first full season, but towards the end of the season that he came in. Danny Rowell's doing the same again. He's coming in before the turn of the year to take over from the previous guy, and he's getting a real head of steam going, and then it looks like it's slowly collapsing. But no, it doesn't have to be, because Big Eck, Alec McLeish, there's times it looked like we chucked it on getting the 2 each draw against Dundee up at Dens Park that I always going about where we missed 2 penalties. Barry Ferguson missed 2 penalties, and eventually Arteta scores one of them. And it ends up Arteta scoring a penalty in the last game of the season, their last goal of that season. It's what wins us the title. When we beat Dunfermline 6-1. And Celtic are only able to beat Kilmarnock 4-0 at Rugby Park. Under Walter, I mean, his first spell in charge, he took over right at the end of the season, was at April time when Graham Souness left us in 1990-91. We were on a run then. We'd won the title the years before that. So it was particularly bad, but it was Motherwell beat us at Fir Park 3-0. Dougie Arnott running riot as he always did against us. Always gave Terry Butcher a terrible time. This was later on, obviously. It's after Big Tel was away, but it was an absolute nightmare. And yet we end up winning the league. It went down to the last day of the season. We had to beat Aberdeen at home, and that's exactly what we did. Walter Smith, even so, what was there's other times that happened under Walter? They'd gone to Easter Road, and it was a 0-0 draw. One each. Natural Novo scored. Maybe we should have had another goal. That's what it was. It was midweek, and I thought we'd mucked it up. And then Celtic went to Easter Road straight after the following Sunday, and they drew as well. They couldn't win, so it was. Remember Inverness Caledonian Thistle beating Celtic midweek as well, kind of unexpectedly. Neil Lennon's Celtic. That was. We were under pressure. We looked like we were going to win the title, and that helped us out. It's stuff happens. We have little glitches. We have little moments, even in the run in to a title. It looks like we've chucked it, but we do it. Celtic came. Craig Bellamy, he's in the news. They think it was Burnley want him, the Wales manager. Craig Bellamy, remember him scoring the goal against us. Celtic beat us. That was before Helicopter Sunday. The season of Helicopter Sunday, they beat us in the post-split Old Firm game at Ibrox. That was it. It was done and dusted. It was all over. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. So I'm hoping it's not. We're not looking at a collapse last Sunday. One result shouldn't amount to a collapse, especially after a run of 5 games before that, a run of 5 victories before that. But it was definitely. How are you doing, folks? Sorry, this is your Fatek. We need Romans back, or we go back to the pre-January 4-2-3-1, or maybe we stick with the 4-3-3 that we ended the game with last week, or maybe go to the 4-4-2, which I think can still work out for us. We've dabbled with that this season. Either way, whatever we do, we can't sing the dam busters when we've got German coaches and German players, but we need to be bubble busters for the Jambos, not the Gers, this Monday. Tea time in Old Rike. Aye, we have had our tea actually, and now you're about to get served, you title tampering, history harasser and maroon maniacs. The greatest ever Ranger was a Hearts fan, and Derek McInnes played for Rangers and will become the greatest Jambo in 66 years if he pulls this off. But we don't care if no one likes us. In fact, that's the way we like it. Time to kill your dream. I watched Ukrainian children crying in Krakow on Thursday and felt bad for them, but not enough to prevent me being relieved that Crystal Palace stuffing Shakhtar Donetsk was good for the Rangers coefficient, so don't try to pull at my heartstrings. We applauded you on the Parkhead pitch after the 1998 Scottish Cup final, and all we got in return was the Rangers died and the Hearts survived. Well, it's time for us to mercilessly murder your best title bid in 40 years. So a fairly mediocre one by our standards survives. Hearts versus Rangers at Tynecastle on Monday night. Preview pod sponsored by Gersnet. Check out Gersnet this Sunday night. It's not on Friday night. Gersnet, much cleverer than myself. Frankie's been in this game for years. It's made me an animal. There's rules to this shit. He's wrote me a manual, a step-by-step booklet for you to get your game on track, not your big push. But Frankie, they're having the Gersnet are doing a preview pod on Sunday night because the game's on Monday. Me, I want to enjoy my weekend. Celtic don't play until Sunday, so they can't ruin your Saturday. Even Celtic's game can't ruin your Saturday. And of course, we're playing Hearts on Monday, so I want to enjoy a whole Saturday and a fair bit of Sunday as well, chilling out, get a bit of a weekend, make the best of this, try and turn this sad face upside down in the fact we had to wait so long for Rangers' next fixture, make a good thing of it and enjoy a weekend where the teddy bears can't upset us even if things do go wrong. But Gersnet will give you a preview, right up to date preview on Sunday night. I'm sponsored by Gersnet and I'm also sponsored by the King, Chaz the Third. Here you go, Chaz the Third. He's bounced back versus the Pope, hasn't he? And taking on Trump. I mean, I had to get sponsored by the Pope a couple of weeks back because he was, credit where it's due. The Pope was giving it large to Trump, and the Pope is American. He is American, so it's his homeland there. Maybe he can't go home. He's risking stuff by doing that. But Charles actually went to Washington. He was actually in Congress. He was giving it to them straight. He was giving it to them absolutely straight, right to their faces. It just shows you it's no over till it's over. We thought his mum was first launcher, Charles, and his mum was first launcher, and she saw off how many popes. I mean, how many? 20, 30 popes died in the time that Elizabeth II was queen. But Chaz, we thought he was a bit slow, he was a bit old for that. But no, he's done the serious business there. He's no hiding in Rome. He's no hiding in London. He's right in there, right in the middle. Aye, come on, let's have this. And making them laugh and all that as well. Great banter, great patter. Absolutely fantastic. So it's not over till it's over. My name's Alec Anderson. 80s. I'm living in the 80s. 80s. I have to push, I have to struggle. I've got shorts on, that's my legs, but I don't. 80s. Get out my way, I'm not for sale no more. 80s. Let's kamikaze till we get there. Dun, dun, dun. And we sang. Dun, dun. You do it this way. You should watch that performance of that on the Tube. It's on YouTube. Their performance on the Tube. Just put in Killing Joke 80s. That's what that was, by the way. Sorry, apologies there. Especially the late great Geordie. But you should their performance. Jasko, just a genuinely scary guy. He's phenomenal. The energy. It's evil, but it's some energy coming off him in that old performance of 80s. And that's why I'm living in the 80s. I mean, who knows where the time goes? 40 years has just flown in. This is where I come out. This is where I live. This is where I grew up. This is where I made my bones. The Jambos on the cusp of winning the title 40 years ago. I was 16 3/4 or whatever when the Jambos blew it on the last day of the season. I was at Ibrox that day. We were beating Motherwell. Souness and Walter Smith came out to take the roar of the crowds. Walter had been caretaker manager for a few games while Souness finished his Sampdoria contract. But the Jambo, the big news that day, of course. Well, we had to seal a European spot by beating Motherwell, of all teams, and we did. But the news, we seriously wanted, we finished 5th that season, so we wanted Hearts to win the league. And all they had to do was draw, or even just get beat 1-0 and hope the Celtic had to win 3 or 4-0. Even then, to win the league. And Celtic were 5-0 up at half time, or 4-0 up at half time at Love Street, and I think they won the game 5-0 against St Mirren. And late on, Hearts, who were still winning the league if it was a draw, but they conceded those 2 goals right at the end to the infamous Albert Kids. And I thought it was Walter Kidd that had scored. I thought it was Walter Kidd that had scored the second goal for some reason, because he was a Hearts player, and we convinced, they've equalised, Hearts have equalised. Yeah, get it when you Celtic, you haven't won the league at all. But that was the days of radio. Transistor radio, just giving you false hope. And I was still staying in Ardrossan at the time, so as I've told you a million times before, getting back to Ardrossan, you go through Paisley Gilmer Street on the train from Glasgow, and it was not pretty. That entire train journey down the road was not pretty at all. It was kind of Thermopylae, the gates of hell. It was just a lot of Rangers supporters jammed into one wee carriage, while Celtic supporters in the other 2 carriages from each end were trying to get at us. And then the guys, the proper hard Rangers supporters, they all got off at Dorai and Colwynnon, and we were just left for a couple of stops. In the last, Stevenson, good, quite staunch, boatman, tap end, mind you, but it got pretty hairy. I had to bolt off at Saltcoats as opposed to Ardrossan. But so that was the last time Hearts didn't win the league, it came this close and blew it. It affected me, and no way it affected me as badly as the Hearts, but it wasn't very good for me. So that was the 80s. It's never mind where the time goes in terms of the last month or even the last week. It's 40 years. It's just passed away, and we're back at the same situation. That 80s Killing Joke, that's the riff. It was Come As You Are, Nirvana. Killing Joke were in kind of dispute with them for years because they thought they'd stole it. And I think Nirvana were like, aye. And Geordie, he just died a couple of years ago. The guitarist from Killing Joke, but of course Kurt Cobain had died but a few years before that in different circumstances. But eventually, Dave Grohl, as a way of sorting it out, I don't know if they came to some sort of financial agreement behind the scenes, but I think part of the package was Dave Grohl would come and play drums on Killing Joke's next album. And there's an amazing film about Killing Joke. It's a kind of biography of the band, the history of Killing Joke. And it's before Geordie died, which a friend on Twitter, a guy who loves his Killing Joke, had recommended to me, and it's mind-bending. There's some team, the old Killing Joke, Jazz Coleman is some man, some machine, but there's footage of him. Now, it's supposed to be, this is a nice way of sorting it out, so there's no hard feelings. Dave Grohl comes along, and he's drummer on this album. Jazz Coleman is standing on top of him the entire time. It's like, you're mine now. You mad drummer now, Dave? He's got him. He's just got him, and he's smiling on that, and he's laughing at Dave Grohl, but he's scaring the shit out of Dave Grohl, and he's like, yeah, we own you, yeah, this is it. You're working for us now, yeah. It's quite intense, and I think that's pretty much. We're the boss of you now, and I think that's maybe how we're feeling about the Jambos this weekend. We're the old guys, we're leaning on Hearts like that. This is what we do. This is just we're the older guys. We're more experienced at this kind of thing. You're just new to this. It's been a while for you, and we hope we're going to hopefully win this game, win this dispute on Monday, and then we'll lean right on you to so that you help Martin O'Neill's Celtic bottle it. Preferably in the last day of the season, the same way they have the last two times Martin O'Neill Celtic have got to the last day of the season, and the title's up for grabs. He's only won 3 league titles with Celtic, Martin O'Neill, and the 2 he didn't win in his previous 5 seasons. He'd gone down to the last day of the season, and yeah, that's a sign that they never give in easily. Celtic, that they take it all the way, all the time under Martin O'Neill, but the 2 times they were being challenged, and the last day they absolutely bottled it. And let's see if we can do this again. This Hearts winning the league is how I was brought up. It's how Hearts to win the league is actually amazing. When you think about it, it's far more interesting, the prospect of Hearts becoming champions of Scotland. Far more amazing than anything the old firm, who are called that for a reason, can do this season. It saw the Hearts boy crying at Dens Park in 1986. Is it that From the Terraces thing or whatever, with the patter with the panellists is terrible, but the little videos they do are amazing. I don't know if it was that, but there was something up in the BBC which didn't really cover the run-in and how Celtic were racking up the goals at Love Street that day, but it was all about Hearts chucking the league that day at Dens Park back in 1986. And I can't remember the fella's name, but he was there, the boy that we all remember being on the park crying. A lot of Hearts fans on the park crying that day at Dens Park at the final whistle, but this one fella had a big kind of permy hair that was trendy in the day, and he knew he's got the Stone Island gear and all that, so he'll be the same as myself, late 50s, early 60s. And he's talking about how he's been slagged rotten his entire life about being caught on sports scene, crying his eyes out. But I think if we'd been in the same situation, we probably would have ourselves done the same ourselves. I'm nearly 57. And I was born during Celtic's 9 in a row. Their first 9 in a row, if you like. And I remember Rangers winning the league in 78. And that was the third of 3 league titles we'd won in short order. And we didn't win it again for another 9 years. But I was 8 when we won the title in the treble in 78. I was 8 coming up on 9. So I remember that kind of reasonably clearly. I remember it coming up like grandstands. They announced, let's go live to Ibrox as we just beat Motherwell 2-0. Rangers seal the 1977-78 league title. I'd beaten my first game the previous season at Ibrox, but I didn't remember us winning the league in the treble in 76, and the title that stopped Celtic winning 10 in a row. I didn't remember us winning that. All my memories start when I'm kind of 7 years old. But that, and then, so in 1980, I very, very clearly remember Aberdeen winning the league for the first time since 1955. Again, grandstand goes live to Easter Road as Alec Ferguson's running onto the pitch to celebrate with his players after they'd scalped Hibs 5-0 or 5-1 or something. They won the title, secured the title. That was quite a thing. I remember that, and I remember Dundee United winning it in 1983 super clearly. I remember Aberdeen won it in 84 and 85. That was by 84-85 season. I had my paper round. I was like 14, 15 years old. And I started going home and away every week. Because there wasn't that dear in those days. And Stevens Masonic supporters bus, it wasn't a problem. Just going everywhere in Scotland with Rangers. And so I kind of grew up with that. That was the era. I grew up in an era, and Rangers were crap. Rangers didn't win the league from 78 until Souness arrived. So from age 8 till age 17, almost 18, Rangers hadn't won the league for, and that was my formative years. Aberdeen, Dundee United, they were winning it almost as many times as Celtic. There's kind of Celtic in between times. So, but yet, that was during that. So even before I can remember, it was just Celtic winning the league when I was born up until 1975. And then there's only 4 teams have ever won the league in my lifetime, and I'm 57 nearly. I'm nearly 50. I'm a couple of months away, 57. There's only 4 teams have won the title in Scotland, have been champions of Scotland in my entire life. Hearts would be the 5th. No, it'd be the Hearts' 5th title. That's fine. Ever. The 5th time they've been champions of Scotland. But it's a hell of a thing. A hell of a thing. What's potentially on the line here? They'd be only the 5th Scottish club in my lifetime to actually win. I mean, if we approach Celtic fans like Agent Harrison and up to the Tony and his crew outside Satrialis, Agent Harris, and we're like, we both hate each other. It's a fight to the death. It's Mortal Kombat, But we know that. We know we're each other's sworn enemies and stuff like that. But it's so established that almost kind of boring to talk about if we're not actually playing each other. If there's nothing going down as such, we might as well just talk about it. And instead of, how about them Mets? It's how about them Hearts? How about them Jambos? Celtic fans might have a bit more resentment towards Hearts. They've got a bit of antipathy going on between them as clubs. But I think in a kind of more sober moment, calmer moment for older Rangers and Celtic fans to be talking about Hearts. Because we, especially folk like ourselves who've seen so much football, we've been following football for decades, 4 decades in my case. Sorry, this is me in my 5th decade now. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing in Scottish football to see the chance of the first team outside the old firm and the new firm since Kilmarnock in 1965. 1965, Jesus. So that's 61 years since anybody outside that 4 different clubs have won the league. And of course, Kilmarnock won it that day by pushing Hearts into 2nd place at Tynecastle on the last day of the season. And that's, you see that boy that's on that little kind of BBC, they put together 4 or 5 guys who were there, who were at Dens Park that day, 1985-86. Some of them could only go back recently. They hadn't been back since there to Dens Park to watch Hearts because it's just too painful for them. As a fella talking about how beating Hibs 5-1 in the Scottish Cup final. I was there. I was at that cup final. A Jambo pal who got me a ticket for it. I'd never been to a Hibs Hearts game, and a mate pulled out, so he just sneaked into that and watched it. That's my only Edinburgh derby. But there's a boy talking about that, how he would just chuckle it. Doesn't care about all that. He's quite happy if he'd never won the Scottish Cup or thrashed Hibs in the Scottish Cup final, if he could just get that league title. If they could just get that league title. This would be Rangers' most significant win at Tynecastle, I think, since the 5-2 win in February 1987. I didn't make that one on the back of one of the most brutal. I always like to show the ticket, the unripped ticket. Sorry, I've got it on back to front. I've not got the selfie mirror thing on in the phone, so it's back to front. But that is Rangers versus Hearts. 7th of February 1987 at Tynecastle. This portion to be given up at Turnstile, I've still got it because it's, even though I was like 17 3/4 at the time, I was a bit hungover. I was starting the drinking and I was a bit hungover, terribly hungover. Couldn't make the train the next day, and of course Rangers go out there and they win 5-2. But it was on the back of a brutal hangover for me. But for Rangers, it was recovering from the brutal hangover of a home defeat, a humiliating home defeat to a Lanarkshire side. We'd lost to Hamilton Accies in the Scottish Cup the week before, as per Motherwell last week. So they almost are 100% positive. We beat Hearts 2 times at home that season. Then we won that game at Tynecastle. We also drew with them in the earlier game at Tynecastle that season. I was at that one where Davy Cooper is kind of mazy dribble off the left wing and then a poke. A cultured poke through in the sunshine. Hearts' first home defeat in 18 months it was, though. That day we beat them 5-2 in February 87 under Souness. McCoy and Robert Fleck kind of recovering their reputation after the chances they missed against Hamilton Accies in the Scottish Cup the previous week. And that was us looking at our first title in a few years. It's the same vibe on Monday. Hearts haven't lost at home all season, and we've got a chance to go there and be the first ones to inflict that defeat on them, and everything, all the doubts would be completely forgotten. I think we've got to forget about the Celtic game as well. If we can beat Hearts at Tynecastle and be the first Scottish team to beat them over 90 minutes at Tynecastle this season, it would just transform everything. People are working at the points, total and the goal difference, but there's all these games to go, and Celtic go there and Hearts will go there and blah blah blah. Just see if you win this game on Monday at this point in the season for Hearts and for Rangers, it'll be phenomenal. It'll be our greatest result this season bar none. So there's a chance for us to go out and do that, and probably the best preparation for that is having a kind of reset by. We did that last Sunday. We've been at Tynecastle more recently with Hearts, when Hearts were weren't just the title favourites, had actually already claimed the championship of our division, that 2 each in the championship at the end of 2014-15 season. Danny Wilson, who's about to join us, is just going to lift the trophy. Hearts had already claimed the championship, and we're both in the second tier. They've been way better than us all season, and we go, we're 2-0 up. 2-0 up is Hearts' last home game of the season. It's looking good. It's a good one for us going into the playoff to boost our confidence, and then they bang in 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes. Hearts, they're going crazy. It's a humiliation for Rangers, and it's party day for them. But this is the way they do. Hearts, it's kind of once every decade, really. Went really close, say 85, 86. 1996, well, we pumped them 5-1 in the Scottish Cup final, but they got to the Scottish Cup final. They always get to the Cup final in the year ending in 6 to the Jambos. 2006, of course, they finished second. We finished third. They win the Scottish Cup. This is the Romanoff era. And that 2014-15, they're above us in the Championship. They win that before we do, and that sends them back up into the top flight. But Hearts have beaten both halves of the Old Firm this season, home and away. And I think I've checked into this, and I think they're the first team to do that since Aberdeen in 1982-83 season. And Aberdeen didn't even win the league in 1982-83 season. But we're over 40 years here. It's an amazing achievement. That was a 3-way title challenge that season. Right down to the last day of the season, Celtic, Dundee United and Aberdeen could all win the league title, but we beat Aberdeen home and away for the first time, and the only time in a 12-year period that season as well. So that'll teach them to win our Cup Winners' Cup in the same season. It must be the last time 3 clubs went into the final day with a chance of being champions of Scotland. And if we go into the last day as part of 3 clubs who get a chance of winning the title in the last day, that's fine. I fancy Celtic to beat Hearts at Parkhead on the final day of the season, just as we did in February, beating Hearts at home. So that should mean that if it's the exact same results for both halves of the Old Firm against Hearts this season, that should mean we draw on Monday. And then Rangers and Celtic would both have lost home and away to Hearts, both drawn at Tynecastle with them, and both beat them at home. But I don't know if it's going to. I don't really know if it's going to work out like that. And I should be feeling sorry, as I say, for this guy, this fella who was caught crying on the cameras in 1986. He was crying on Sports Scene. He's been getting slagged for it. He's been getting slagged rotten his entire life for that. But I don't know. I just needs absolutely must. I was watching Atletico Madrid on Wednesday night. Atletico Madrid in Wednesday night. I was wanting them to beat Arsenal. They've got one losing Champions League final to their name, Arsenal, and I was wanting them to beat Arsenal in the same ground that Spurs lost their only Champions League final in 2019, because Atleti are the only club to lose more than 2 finals of the European Cup or the Champions League, whatever you want to call it, without ever having won it, without ever having won the trophy. I think Juventus have lost 7 European Cup and Champions League finals, but they've won it twice. Benfica, I think, lost 5 European Cup. Benfica lost 3 in the 60s, but they'd already won it twice in the 60s. By the point they did that, quite an amazing record. Benfica have got there, the curse of the goat man, the Bela Gutmann. But Atletico Madrid have lost it 3 times. They've lost the final 3 times, and they've never won it. No other club's done that. And they already go through the hell of being in the same city, living in the same city as the club who've won it more times than anybody else. Rayo Vallecano, they're 1 foot in a European final as well. It'd be quite funny if Arsenal put Atleti out, Real Madrid get pumped out by Bayern, or not pumped out, but it's a hell of a tie. They get put out by Bayern in the quarterfinals. It'd be quite amazing if Rayo Vallecano in the Conference League are the only Madrid side to reach a European final this season. But the 3 finals they lost, Atletico de Madrid, different kinds of agony. Really very similar, but to actually. Real Madrid put them out the European Cup, Atletico Madrid, back in the 50s, because Real Madrid were they won the 50s into this 1955 to 60. Real Madrid won the first 5 European Cups, and they beat Atletico Madrid in the early rounds of one of them. Like they beat Barcelona. I think they beat Athletic Bilbao as well. And one of the Sevilla won the league in the 40s. Did they? The only time they won the Liga, but they beat Spanish clubs anyway along the way, and it wasn't always because they were the reigning European Cup champions and the other side had won the league. I think It was a bit messy back in the early days. It might have just been an invitational thing. Let's get another Spanish club in there because Real Madrid have won La Liga and they're also reigning champions. It was something like that. The organisers always tend to favour the Latin teams. It's a bit bent to make stuff happen. But for Atletico Madrid, just meant they'd won the league like 54 and 55. They'd won the league in the early 50s anyway, just before the European Cup started. They won it back to back. The minute it starts, Real Madrid are dominating it, and then they scalp Atletico out of it, and then Atletico Madrid finally get to the final in 1974. This is after Real Madrid have won it like 6 times, up to and including 1966. The last time they won it was at the Heysel Stadium, and Atletico Madrid get to their first ever European Cup final. It's at the Heysel Stadium, and they're beating Bayern 1-0, and then Bayern equalise. This is Bayern's first European Cup final, first final of the European Cup, should I say. And then Bayern equalise in the 120th minute. In the very final kick of extra time, Jörg Schwarzenbeck, a centre-half, scalps it from about 35 yards out, just because they're running out of time. There's no choice, and it goes right in the bottom corner. Goes to a replay. Bayern beat them 4-0, because they're a younger team. And then the next time they get to the final, under Diego Simeone, it's 2014. And they're beating Real Madrid. They get Real Madrid in the final, just to make it sweeter or to make it more agonising. It's in the Estadio de Luz in Lisbon, and you know the story. They're winning. Diego Godin scores a goal, and they're winning 1-0 right up until the very last. Again, the very last kick of the ball. Bayern were even wearing their all white away kit when they played Atletico in '74, and there's Real Madrid, and they're all white. And it goes. They equalise, and the very last kick of the ball, and then they pump them. Put 3 past them in quick order in extra time. And then 2016, Atletico are back in the final under Simeone. It's in the San Siro. It's Real Madrid again. They're playing Real Madrid again. And Real Madrid have put them out the Champions League at other stages as well. But in this time, it's one each. It's a bit more. It's not any last minute winners, but it goes to penalties, and they lose it on penalties. They're kind of losing it in the different agonising ways they possibly could. So I'm really, really sympathetic to Atletico Madrid. I want to see them finally do it. I can't see anybody beating PSG or Bayern except PSG and Bayern this season. But so I went to Madrid for a week on holiday back in 2015. I've by that point already seen Real Madrid winning the European Cup at Hampden or the Champions League at Hampden, and that's a bit like seeing Scotland at Wembley. It's not their home, but it's a kind of emotional home for them. Really famous stuff they did. But Real Madrid won that European Cup at Hampden in 1960, winning 7-3 in the final. Puskas gets 4 goals, Di Stefano gets 3. Against Eintracht Frankfurt, that's the biggest crowd ever for a European Cup final. For any European club final, it's just that's it. The legend was set. That was the 5th time in a trot they'd won it of the first 5 European Cups, and nobody's ever caught up with that. They established a legacy that they just keep topping up. They've been topping up ever since then. So that was the moment for them. So when I saw them beaten by Leverkusen back at Hampden 2002, walking amongst all the Real Madrid fans on the way back down Cathcart Road, and muy bien, as folk are leaning out their windows of their tenements with their cans of lager, hey, Real Madrid, well done on it. Oh, this is great. And they all felt they were back at 1960. So I saw them there. I didn't really care about that. I'd like to see Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. It's one of the things you feel you should do, rather than, I don't have any kind of great heartfelt desire to do it. I'd like to do it one day. I did the tour of the Bernabeu, and I've been in it, and that was fine. But I went to see Atletico Madrid at the Manzanares. I went to see Atletico Madrid at their previous stadium to the one they're in just now, and that was bloody magic. What a night that was, what an atmosphere. It was just great. They're beating Real Sociedad in La Liga midweek, and it was great. Simeone's Atletico Madrid as well, one of my favourite teams of all time. But that was great. Because they're a European finalist, because they're in Europe, I've got my list of European finalists. I need to see them all. I've got 20 odd still to see out of the 106 that have been. There's going to be an extra one this season, in addition to that, at least one addition to that list this season. But Atletico Madrid got to European Cup Winners' Cup final the season after we got to the Cup Winners' Cup final. Then we got to the first Cup Winners' Cup final. They got to the second Cup Winners' Cup final. The first Cup Winners' Cup final was home and away, and we played the first leg at Ibrox. So we played our first ever European final in Glasgow at Ibrox. Atletico Madrid played their first ever European final at Hampden, in the final of the following, and they played against Fiorentina, the holders. So their first European final was in Glasgow against Fiorentina, same as ours. And it went to a replay, that one. They played the replay about 5 months later. I think it was the next season's tournament was kicking off, and they won it. they beat Fiorentina in the replay. No one ever retained the Cup Winners' Cup, but that kind of created, because that was just 2 years after 127,621 saw Real Madrid beat Eintracht Frankfurt 7-3. So, and Eintracht's legend had been added to by the fact they pounded Rangers in the semi-final. So Atletico will be thinking, the Glasgow public love a team from Madrid, and they love anybody who's just beaten Rangers in a kind of a very important game like Fiorentina did last season. Wonder what kind of crowd we're going to get. I think it's 29,066. It's 100,000 missing when Atletico Madrid played at Hampden, and they're far nicer kit. There's a far sexier kit they've got. Fiorentina's is beautiful as well, far better than Real Madrid's kit. So that was, I felt sorry for them then, but I always wanted to get. I saw, as I say, back in 2015, I saw Atletico Madrid at the Manzanares, but the first time I saw Atletico de Madrid, to make sure I got them off the list, they were playing Hearts at Tynecastle. I was standing in the old Gorgie Road away end terrace when I used to go and stand with Rangers. You know, that death trap, one vomitory thing that takes you into the wee tiny kind of alleyway. But it was a cracking bit of terrace and proper old Archibald Leach stand at Tynecastle, so you couldn't. It's still a great ground, and it was a great ground then. You could stand kind of around this side. It was a UEFA Cup, the 93-94 UEFA Cup, and Hearts were 2-0 up. John Cahoon, John Robertson scored 2 goals, and then Atletico pulled one back late on and won the second leg 3-0 Atletico. But the 3 ways Atleti have lost the European Cup or the Champions League final, well, they've got a Scottish equivalent in the last 2 ways that Hearts have failed to win the title of Scottish champions. The brutal way, both on the final day, the brutal way they did it in 1985-86 with Celtic winning 5-0 at St Mirren, and then them slipping up right at the end of the game against Dundee when they only required a draw to seal the title that day, Hearts. And that was for the first time in 26 years on that day. I've been waiting ever since. It's now 66 years. But previously, of course, they had Kilmarnock coming to Tynecastle on the last day of the 1964-65 season, and the legend is, of course, that it was goal average was the system back then. Kilmarnock had to win 2-0. And it was Willie Waddell was the manager of Kilmarnock. They had to win 2-0, Kelly, at Tynecastle to take the league off Hearts. Hearts were winning the league in that last round of fixtures, and Kelly did win 2-0 that day. Goalkeeper an absolute stormer, and they denied the Jambos the title. And it's goal difference, of course, in 85-86. I think Celtic ended up winning it by a couple of goals to spare. But I think if Hearts had lost 1-0 even to Dundee, and Celtic had only beat St Mirren 2-0, maybe 3-0, Hearts would still have been champions. But it was the 5-0 that Celtic won by, and it was 2-0 Dundee won by. And the legend is that if it had been goal difference in 1964-65, Hearts would have won the title against Kilmarnock. If it had been goal average in 85-86, Hearts would have won the title if the other results had stayed the same as it did. But of course, it was a different scenario. Folk play to different rules. But I think we're just missing, to keep up with Atletico Madrid, they're needing a third brutally painful, heartbreaking last day of the season, not winning the league scenario. And they've had that thing where they've lost it at home to their direct opponent, their direct challenger for the title in 64-65, and then the thing of mucking up away from home, but their title challenger just pulling it out of the bag in a different ground altogether. Maybe they need one where they win in the last day of the season, but somebody else actually wins the title. And if maybe the way things work out, I don't know the points, I can't quite calculate it, but if Rangers do the business on Monday, maybe we could get a scenario where Hearts beat Celtic at Parkhead in the last day of the season by a single goal, just as Rangers score their second goal in the night. The final whistle goes at Parkhead, and Hearts are champions. Hearts are champions because Rangers are only beating Falkirk 1-0. And then, the Falkirk goal, it's Bain. He's dropped it. And it's a tap in for Chermiti. And that's it. Rangers in the 101st minute have won the title. Things. I'll do my snagging items before I do Danny Rowe's press conference. My Italy Rangers, I've got to kind of channel Italy 1982, Italy at the 82 World Cup, get into the second round group stage. That was my comparison. That's what I was saying we should do on my podcast on Wednesday there. Well, first of all, I forgot to point out, probably because it means giving a massive compliment to Celtic, that Celtic and Hearts are France 82 and Brazil 82 in that kind of comparison. because, and that wee analogy, because they're the favourites, Brazil 82, and the kind of beloved stylists hitting the heights as in France 82. But I was also mixing it up with the fact that Argentina 82 were the reigning champions like Celtic are now, so it was pretty confusing. But well, the idea was that we're Italy, we're kind of off to a poor start as we did this season in the league. We're not really rated, and we had been champions, not never, but quite recently. But not that recently, not recently enough. Italy, it'd been like 40 odd years since they'd won the World Cup in 82. Rangers, it's only 5 years, but I think it's played every 4 years. It's maybe the equivalent. And France had never been champs in 1982. And Hearts have been champions of Scotland before, but it probably feels like that to Hearts fans. There's very few Hearts fans around who remember 1960. And that's how they'll kind of feel right now. Plus, it was a fact, I forgot to point out, there's 4 games. Italy had 4 games into that second round group stage, not fancied at all. But they beat Argentina, they beat Brazil, they beat Poland, they beat Germany in the final. And we've got 4 games left to go as well. It's just the kind of the European. Sorry, it's terrible. It's a terrible analogy. Point number 2, it's not a snagging item. It's more of a kind of clarification. I wasn't trying to imply that Rangers had suffered the biggest ever defeat in one leg of a European Cup or a Champions League semi-final. It was us who suffered the biggest ever defeat on aggregate in a European, not in one leg of a European semi-final, just the biggest ever defeat on aggregate. Like we lost 6-3 to Eintracht in the second leg at Ibrox of that 1960 European Cup semi-final, and there was 9 goals in that game. And that was, at one point I thought it could go that PSG ended up battering. They were 5-2 up against Bayern at one point. I thought if they really keep going and batter them, like they score 6 and 7, then they could end up, by the end of the second leg, it could have beat the records aggregate that we lost by to Eintracht Frankfurt in 1960. But I wasn't trying to say that it was the same as the one. It was an aggregate defeat in the semi-final. We lost 6-3 at Ibrox after losing. It was 6-3. That was 9 goals. There was 9 goals in the game the other night in Paris. That's what I was talking about. But we lost 6-3 at Ibrox after losing 6-1 in the beautiful, harmonious city of Eintracht. But oh my God, the mailbag I got this after putting that pod out the other night. The hate mail basically since Wednesday night. I'm getting all letters with a bullet inside it and that, and folk pouring the meths through the letterbox and trying to set the match state and stuff like that, just because they thought I was trying to set ends up. What about Real Madrid pumping FC Zurich 6-0 with 3 goals in the first 16 minutes and 6 different scores in front of 110,000 in the second leg of the 1963-64 European Cup semi-final? Yeah, absolute fly-by-night shyster who probably supports Celtic. I remembered you telling us your mother was Catholic. Wake up, Bears. He's rubbing it in our faces, this wind-up. And that was just my mum. My mum sent that one as well. But folk had taken it really seriously. Jesus Christ, calm down. Turned out that was only an 8-1 aggregate. In 64, Real Madrid only beat FC Zurich 8-1 in aggregate. We get beat 12-4 in aggregate by Eintracht Frankfurt in 1960. But they lost that 6-0. One leg of a semi-final, they lost it by 6 goals to 0 FC Zurich in 1964. And we lost 6-1 to Eintracht. And that's the worst of the 2 legs in 1960. So, no, but I'm not trying to say we'd lost one leg. And plus Milan, of course. Famously, 1988-89 European Cup semi-final. Did they win? I won 1-0. The Marco van Basten goal in the Bernabeu. But then they got Real Madrid back to the San Siro, beat them 5-0. That was the moment they announced themselves Arrigo Sacchi's Milan. And Carlo Ancelotti was running the show. And he pings one right in the top corner as well. But he was running the show along with Roberto Donadoni in that game. So we lost by 5 goals to Eintracht Frankfurt in one leg of a European Cup semi-final. And it was still the European Cup in 1989 when Milan beat Real Madrid themselves. They beat Real Madrid by 5 goals, 5-0 in one leg of a European semi-final. Ancelotti ends up manager of Milan twice. He managed them to 2 Champions League wins, and he managed Real Madrid to 3 Champions League wins. He won 5 Champions Leagues, like 5-0. It's just Real Madrid, Milan, 5-0. Ancelotti's the star who scores as a player, and then as boss, he wins 5 Champions Leagues with Milan and Real Madrid. It's also, final point, snagging point, Bruno Conte, Antonio Cabrini, and Dino Bloody Zoff. Forgot to mention them. Absolute sin. Sorry, folks, this has gone a bit over the chest. The Jambos, who have been back to the Championship since we were last in the Championship, it has to be said. But with Tony Bloom's kind of data analytics, his algorithms helping them, they've been amazing this season. There's no two ways of getting away. You can't get away from it. No two ways about it. No Europe, not being in Europe has helped them, and they do have serious money compared to their usual standards. But when you break down their squad into individual parts, into its components, what they're doing is phenomenal. Hearts, yeah, the old firm have weakened for various reasons this season, but Hearts are causing it as much as they're taking advantage of it. Celtic haven't beaten Hearts this season. We have. And with their own kind of ownership, new ownership in their Date 11 model, it is the makings of a beautiful kind of post-World War II style rivalry, duopoly even. Now, the kind we can stomach. Chermiti and Shanklin have both scored home and away in this fixture this season. Hearts and Rangers, they both scored at Ibrox, they both scored at Tynecastle. Chermiti scored 4 goals against Hearts this season. Shanklin scored 3 goals against Rangers. That's quite kind of epic sounding. That's quite old school. You know, get Bayern Munich, or the way they beat Real Madrid 4-3 in the second leg of the quarter-final, and the way they've lost 5-4 in the first leg of the semi-final of the Champions League this season. We're back to the 60s. We're back to the kind of time that Hearts, that 1960, Real Madrid 7-9, Frankfurt 3. That was the last year Hearts won the league. They won the league in 1960. In Scotland, the same way Real Madrid won the European Cup in Scotland in that final. We're getting back to that kind of epic, classic, banging them in at both ends type of vibe between Rangers and Hearts, the same way it's going on between Bayern Munich and anybody else they want to play in the Champions League. It's got all the components, this Rangers-Hearts rivalry this season of the Iron Curtain defence versus the Hibs famous 5, Hugh Shaw versus Bill Struth. It's got all the components of Eric Caldo and Bobby Shearer versus Hearts' terrible trio, Tommy Walker versus Scott Simon. I just want Danny Rule to keep Derek McInnes to his kind of highest previous managerial league position. He got to second with Aberdeen. Just do that for now. Hugh Shaw, he won a league title as a player with Rangers as well before winning 3 league titles as Hibs manager, being a direct rival to us for lots of titles in the 40s and 50s. But we lost 3 league games this season. 2 of them have been to Hearts. Hearts have lost 5 league games this season, but we're the only team to beat Hearts by more than a single goal this season. So we're both we kind of records against each other that are significant. Both of us went out the Scottish Cup at home on penalties to other top 6 sides. In September, we lost 2-0 at Ibrox to Hearts. Russell Martin was the manager. That was Russell Martin's only league defeat. Lawrence Shanklin gets both the goals. The first one, he handled it on the way into the goal, which he admitted at the press conference straight after. You could see him admitting it at the time as VAR had a look at it. And the second one was a penalty that Jack Butland saved, and he scores the rebound, Shanklin. But we had a good period against them, but they largely outclassed us in that game. They looked quite streetwise and savvy in that game, but not difficult against Russell Martin's Rangers. In December, they beat us 2-1 at Tynecastle. We seemed to have scored after half an hour or so. Danny Rose talking about that in his presser today. In that game, Fernandez, a set piece in the all-orange kit. I'm assuming we're going to be wearing that on Monday night as well. It looked good, but it was one of those ones that makes you hate VAR and think it's a conspiracy because it was so close, the offside, that you couldn't really see it, so you just assume that all the officials are totally bent. But Hearts got in. Lawrence Shanklin, they scored for a set piece, and then Lawrence Shanklin scored that goal at Jack Butland, just left a hole the exact size of the ball at his near post to let it in. And we come back at them. That was Big Chermiti's first goal in his fixture in injury time. It was too little, too late. But February 15th, probably our best performance this season when we scurried them 4-2 at Ibrox. Twice Hearts led in that game at Ibrox. The day after Valentine's Day, February 15th, they get Hearts. I was going to town with the partner in that game. In that podcast, but yeah, we beat them 4-2. Big Chermiti hat trick. Ibrox was absolutely rocking, and we saw the 4-2 getting unleashed that day for the first time with the 4 January signings, top of their game. It was great. It was a great day. It was a great Sunday in the winter darkness. It really lit things up, and it gave us hope. It showed us that Danny Rule is the man. We'd already beaten Celtic 3-1 at Parkhead at that point in time, so real hope after that game. That doesn't dissipate just because of one home defeat to Motherwell. Three teams going for the title. It means that the top six split is working, as the kind of circus spectacle it was always intended to be, to the greatest extent it's ever worked. This is a shootout. This is a proper old style shootout. But no, I don't really think it's a western because there's so many other things involved. The three clubs, it's a bit more. There's a bit more politicking and backstabbing that going on in the background. Three clubs are going to be going at it hard and a bit nasty. Three clubs are going to the mattresses, and like killing Salozzo and McCluskey was how Michael won that particular war, because killing Pop's the key for Salozzo. He's got to kill Pop. We need to off Hearts and Celtic in short order. We had to leave the top table temporarily last week to go take a leak, and it was indeed Pish versus Motherwell. But we don't want to come out of that game with just our dick in our hands. We want two Romans in our hands. That'd be very nice. That way, it's loud. It scares away any pain in the ass. Innocent bystanders. Hibs and Falkirk will just melt and hand us the last 6 points of the season when they see and hear us put two apiece in the head of Hearts and Celtic on territory both of our title rivals felt was safe. But Parkhead is next week. This Monday, we blow maroon all over the nice Ivy League suits. Nothing matters beyond Tynecastle on Monday. Danny Rose presser today. All three teams will say they can win it. If you asked anybody from any of the three teams involved, they'll all say they can win it. John has more problems. I thought he might have said do John, but I think it's John, as in John Suter, has more problems, kind of injury problems. I don't think anybody's worked. Big man's form went off a cliff, so that's not a problem unless somebody else gets injured. Romans and Nadiri. Romans and Nadiri was the big thing. Getting them back. He was too theatrical with his answer to the opener about Romans and Nadiri's injury situation. He was too kind of Shakespearean in his pregnant pause, pursing his lips together. How do I put this? I think he's pretending Romans has a chance of playing, or Romans is definitely going to play. He's hedging his bets. He's keeping it dark because he wants to keep Derek McInnes guessing right up to kick-off, because Derek has Deeks was the victim the first time we unleashed the 4-2-2-2, and McInnes will know precisely how key Romans is to our kind of best formation in the best way. We saw last week it doesn't really work without Romans. It doesn't work without Nadiri either, but it's hard to tell. This is one benefit of the game not taking place until Monday, until tea time on a Monday. It's a terrible kick-off time, but sporting integrity, we're finally avenged. He's getting more time to recover his two Romans, and that's how Danny Rule made it sound today in his presser. Like, Nadiri is recovering quicker than we thought, but we thought he'd be struggling to make it back at all this season. So we don't think Ryan Nadiri is going to be playing. He might get like the Falkirk game, perhaps the very last game of the season, but it doesn't sound like he's available at all. And two Romans, well, for Alan Hutton in January 2008, just read two Romans in 2026, getting all the time, getting extra time to get back for this most crucial of games, this most crucial of fullbacks, wingbacks. But something about it made me think maybe Romans is actually out the game altogether, and he's just trying to mess with Derek McInnes' mind before the old mind games. Daniel's two games so far versus Hearts. He was asked about that today, and how he feels if he gets on against Hearts or whatever, and he said the first game, was the defeat at Tynecastle, was his only away defeat in the league, his only away domestic defeat, and he said that the narrowly offside goal we scored last time at Tynecastle in December, that would have been, we could have taken the lead with that one then. He admitted how good Hearts were from. He's very, very stingy in any praise for Hearts, quite bitter about, basically hinting we should have got that goal. It wasn't offside. We could have taken the lead. That would have made all the difference. He believes the way a young man would. He just turned 37 the other day. But it would have been good to take the lead in that game. But he then admitted that how good Hearts had been from set pieces after that. That was their equaliser on the day back in December. Rahman from STV was asked him if Hearts were the most difficult opponent that Rangers have faced this season, Danny Rule's faced this season, and he seemed kind of reluctant to acknowledge it. Maybe he's thinking about Porto, he's thinking about a few of the European games, like about Braga and stuff like that, who are, on the cusp of a European final. But he mentioned the 4-2 win at home and said the away game was difficult, but generally if a team is top of the league for so long, they must be doing something right. Not exactly lavishing praise on them, on the Jambos, was Danny Rule. There'll be a lot of 50-50 duels in this game, and one day we have to be smart, he says. We have to be kind of organised. We can't make stupid fouls in dangerous areas because Hearts are so good from set pieces. The players were hurt this week. He was asked about the reaction to the Motherwell game. They were hurt, they were a bit upset by it in training, but they were up for training and they were telling the manager they still believe they can win the title. But we'll have to put in the 90 to 95 minute performances in the last 4 games, because he was getting asked about the fact that our performances are quite patchy in games. We're going 2-0 down and then coming back and having purple patches, but also some absolutely horrendous patches as well in these games. We've got to put in total performances now in these last 4 games if we want to do anything. He was asked if it'd be seen as an opportunity missed if we don't win the title. He got a bit nebulous and philosophical and said it's 16 years since we won it with fans, which is wrong. It's 15 years since we won it with fans, and I don't know what this proves. That he's either trying to make an excuse, like saying, "Well, come on, it's the last time we won the title doesn't count because there's no fans there. This is like Celtic supporter patter." So he lets him hark back to 2011. Walter, the last of the 3 in a row in Walter's second period. That's the last time we won a proper league title in front of fans. So how can you be getting on to me if you can't win the title this season when I come in at a point where we're 8th in the league? We shouldn't be too impatient. There's still a lot of work to do, type thing. Or he so believes that we're going to win the title this season that he's hyping it up. That he's saying this is going to win. Right, we won it in 2021. We won it 5 years ago, but there's no fans there. Imagine winning it in front of fans again. It's 16 years since we've done that. It's only 15, Danny. But it's going to be mental. It's going to be great. So I don't know what he's actually meaning by that. But it's the second time I've heard him saying this thing about didn't win it not in front of fans the last time. He said now we need results. The Snookers is it our last chance kind of thing, but we need results from our side and also maybe a bit of help from other teams. But it's been a good week, he says, at training. Tynecastle will be on fire, he said. That's how he put it in terms of the atmosphere. They'll go all in for a kind of historical achievement this season, but we need good game management, basically lots of 50-50 duels, so we have to be careful. Repeating that same point there. Anything other than 4 wins, will that be not enough? But you've got to win all 4 games now, Danny, to have any chance of winning the title. He's been asked, and he's kind of smiling. He wasn't losing his temper and like that. It was quite cool today. He doesn't know. It's a very pointed way. He says nobody knows in this room how much points you need in the end and what happens, what's going to happen. You don't know how many points anybody's going to need. You don't know how the game's going to pan out. He's threw it in a few times. That's football. Football just goes like that. Like we only lost to Motherwell because that's football. It's positive in a certain way. You're writing off your mistakes to sheer chance and bad luck, whereas I'm assuming all the things that we do right are 100% down to us being brilliant. Tynecastle will be on fire, I said. They'll go for it. Chermiti, he was asked about him, his improvement, the goals he's scoring now, and he says Chermiti symbolises, basically he was saying in not so many words, that Chermiti symbolises the development from October till now. That's German confidence, basically. Since I come in, Yusuf Chermiti started scoring. He scored his first goal under me. He was a flop before I arrived, and now look at him, he's absolutely brilliant. Everybody's slagging him, but he's fantastic now. He's banging them in. He's got big courage because he always shows for the ball and all that. He's massive improvement. Everything's great with Chermiti, as it is with me, was the implied message. Managing injuries is still huge, even though we have to take risks now. Every game's a final, but we have 4 finals to play. This was this thing about Hearts is maybe the final, but then we have another final the week after that against Celtic, so he's getting caught up in his own patter about every one of these games now being a final of a sort. But he was laughing about it as well. He's kind of faced with questions that are implying you can't be doing this, sports science stuff. Manage to get your best team out in the park and run them into the ground, and he's saying, "Oh, that's fine." Basically, if Mikey Moore scores a hat trick in the first half against Hearts at Tynecastle, so we play him for the second half as well, then that's him. He just pulls something because he's not fully fit, and he's completely out of the game against Celtic at Parkhead. How's that going to look? He was just trying to explain sports science to idiots. But the development, the team's doing much. The team will take care of it, basically, and he'll take care of the team. Managing injuries is a huge thing. But he did admit we do have to take risks now because the games are also pivotal. After that, there's another final. After this final, there's another one. Who knows how it goes? Hearts are 4 points ahead, but they probably won't settle for a draw, according to Danny Rowe. They'll go for it as well in this game. He obviously wants to stop going 2-0 down. He was going to ask about that. Last two games have gone 2-0 down, but the takeaway from that, from those two games, is we have the ability to come back, because we come back to 2 each against Motherwell before losing it later, and we come back, to eventually thrash Falkirk after being 2-0 down to them. So again, he's saying, oh no, we want to make sure we keep clean sheets if we possibly can. That certainly helps. But even if we go 2-0 down, we've proved we can come back, so teams can't relax even when they're beating us. The problem being that we've been 2-0 up against Celtic and they come back to 2 each. We come back to 2 each against Motherwell and they still beat us. So I think it's just we can't be sure either, even if Rangers are winning. But he seemed very confident. He seemed up for it. I think he's kind of cutting and pasting it on, just trying to pull it all together the best way he can. He's been doing that since he came in. He knows nothing's perfect. He knows we've got major problems, but so many of them aren't his, and he's making the best of a bad lot. The old silk purse out of pig's ear. He's continuing with that kind of part. Tom English rounded off the press conference by asking kind of sleazy, get under your skin type questions that everybody was kind of trying to ignore. What was it? When they bring Tom English along, it's time because it's the biggest game in Scotland so far this season, so Tom English has to get in there. And what was it? How would you mark yourself? How would you say you've done so far this season? And are you enjoying it? Like, both tell us with German arrogance that you think you're amazing, so I can slaughter you for that when you haven't won anything, and also tell me that you hate it because Rangers fans are animals. Just do everything wrong, Danny. Let me absolutely crucify you by asking these sleazy, disgusting leading questions. And there was something else as well. But Danny Rose said he likes us being the hunters. That's it. So maybe that explains how we keep going behind. He's always, and he said that it's no down to me to mark my own homework, so to speak. It's as long as the fans like me, and as long as the board, the directors like me, and the players like me, that's how you'll find out if I've done a good job or not. But it's not for me to say if I've done a good job or not. It's no down to me. It's just down to me to mark the homework of Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, and they're both gone. So he never mentioned that. But I think there's definitely a thing where he's been telling us since he came in that this title race is going to go down to the last game of the season. And it's almost Rangers being 4 points off the top with 4 games to go. Does absolutely nothing. Does nothing to change that point of view, but it's maybe kind of how he prefers it. I think he sees us going top of the league the last game. Celtic and Hearts drawing and us nipping in there, possibly in the last game of the season. I think that's how he's had it planned out from the word go. So I'm beating around the bush here to avoid the big one. The starting 11. What do I think is going to be Rangers' starting 11? I've no idea. If Romans plays, Dujon Sterling's going at right back. If Romans is injured, Tav goes in at right back and Dujon Sterling's going to be left back. I know we improved with Tav last week coming on in the second half, but it was a midfield solution. I felt it was a bit as establishing, and Motherwell were very dominating the midfield. That was Motherwell playing through us in the midfield was where it all came from, was where the problem came from. And we didn't need to get big, Terry Hurlock type defensive midfielders into midfield. We just need to get our foot on the ball and play football. That was the way of defending against Motherwell last week. So Tav helps you do that. Tav establishes that base camp and attack like few other players in our team can. He's invaluable in so many ways, James Tavernier. But even somebody like me who loves him is thinking perhaps maybe with Hearts, with that set piece ability, bodies in the box, we have to do a bit more defending than that on Monday. Maybe we need Dujon Sterling coming in there at right back if two Romans. And I don't know. That's why I thought he might have said Dujon has more problems because Sterling did come off kind of early last week before the end against Motherwell, but he always does, I suppose. But I don't know. I really don't know. Does Chukwani drop out? I don't know if Chukwani is. I think the 4-2-2-2 formation is probably the key to getting the best out of Chukwani, although we tried it last week, but with Majovski instead of Nadiri as well. I don't think that's key to it as well. Nadiri and Romans are key to the 4-2-2-2 working, so it wasn't working at its best last week. Chukwani has had an average game against Falkirk and a really terrible first half against Motherwell, but I'm as believing that Romans and Nadiri are fit and that they're both actually going to turn up. That the big surprise in Monday is going to be that Nadiri and Romans are both playing. But I believe that as much as the fact I believe that neither of them are in any way fit, and we'll not see either of them for the rest of the season. I just don't know what the actual truth is, and maybe Daniel was just telling us straightforwardly the truth. We don't know if Romans are going to play or not, but that's absolutely key. Romans' presence as to how we set the team out. Pun intended. Rule is a roller. He will roll the dice. I feel Majowski last week has killed the notion, the terrible first half that he had, that we can do the 4-2-2-2 with him partnering Chermiti. So I'm going to say that we'll go 4-3-3 to start with. We'll start Monday's game the way we ended last Sunday's game. We won the second half last Sunday playing a kind of 4-3-3. So I'll say we're going to go with that. And I think Daniel will want to go at them. But then Majowski, because Hearts are probably going to attack us more, they'll give us more space. Motherwell certainly attacked us last week. But they might give us more space in behind. So maybe Majowski, if we play 4-4-2, we can have Majowski and Chermiti playing up front. I've been going through this all day, and I can't get a handle on what I really feel the team's going to be. There's too many key variables in this one, but I feel Majowski last week killed the idea of us doing 4-2-2-2 without Nadiri and Romans. I'm going to go 4-3-3, right? Butland in goals, and I'm going to go. I don't think Romans is fit, so I'm going to go Tav at right back, Fernandes and Giga as your centre halves, and Dujon Sterling at left back. In midfield, big shout, Connor Barron, and there are three in midfield with Barron, Raskin, and Diamandi. But this time, unlike the Motherwell second half, I think Diamandi will sit in a bit deeper, and Raskin's got to push forward more. We can't have Raskin coming back in between the two centre halves all the time. In this one, probably. I like to get him further up all the time, and I would have a front three with Chermiti in the middle, Mikey Moore starting on the left, and I'm going to go Gassama again. I know, but I'm going to go. I know he doesn't start games well. I know he's better coming on as a sub or switch his position at half time, and he might go left at the second half as well. Gassama, it's a game we probably have to start really well. We can't afford to start poorly. I just feel Gassama's got to come good. I think people were saying maybe Skov Olsen could come good in this game. He's done. He's too slow. He's fragile. He's away in the head. I think Skov Olsen. I don't want to write anybody off like that, but he's not shown that he's going to be able to cope with Hearts at Tynecastle. I would rather have Bajrami than Skov Olsen because he's a dude. Bajrami. He's got street smarts. He's got skills, and I don't think any atmosphere really frightens him. Bajrami, so he would be. I'd be quite happy with him. I don't know. Asgard could be an option on the right hand side, but and of course we've got our Flying Finn as well. I just don't know if he's probably properly up for it. I'm going to go Gassama on the right hand side with Moore on the left and Chermiti in the middle. So my guess at the team, and it really is a guess, and this is dependent on Romans not playing. I feel as if he's not fit. Butland in goals. Tav at right back, Sterling at left back, Fernandes and Giga your centre halves, a midfield three of Connor Barron, so I'm dropping Chukwani, Nico Raskin and Mo Diamandi, and then we're going to have Gassama on the left hand side, or on the right hand side of our front three of Gassama, Chermiti and Mikey Moore. That's how I'm going with it anyway. But it's so open to variation. Score prediction. I'm going to go 3-1 to Rangers. 3-1 to our Teddy Bears. I was through it that 85-86 when Hearts nearly won the league. I was at all 5 games we played Hearts that season. They just come up like a couple of seasons before. I'd only seen them for the first time really as I was still a teenager at the time, a kid basically, and I was quite impressed with their support. The support they brought through to Ibrox a couple of times the previous season. But then they came to Ibrox, 85-86, straight away, we beat them 3-1. We went on a wee run at the start of that season. We went top of the league. We looked like we were going to challenge the title. Who knows? It was done by September, I think. But in the course of that, we beat them 3-1. Ali McCoy's punches Sandy Clark. The two of them get sent off. But we beat them 3-1 at Ibrox to keep our wee initial run going. And then I went through to Tynecastle. I've still got the programme here, 16th November, 85. Now, that was they beat us 3-0. We'd beat Celtic 3-0 at Ibrox the week before. And we went to Tynecastle the following week and we get beat 3-0. They beat us in the Scottish Cup at Tynecastle in January, beat us 3-2. They beat us 3-1 in the second league meeting at Tynecastle later on that season. So they picked 3 passes, no, 3-1, 3-0, 3-2 at the 3 games we played them at Tynecastle. The only Scottish Cup game we played was getting put out at Scottish Cup at Tynecastle that season. And the other game at Ibrox was between Christmas and New Year, and that's when Hearts were starting to roll. That's when they were like, they'd started putting together a great run of results. And I've talked about this before. Our crowds were terrible back then. Souness hadn't arrived yet. It'd become another season before Souness arrived. We didn't even know he was going to arrive at this point in time. And I don't know. And the crowd's about 30 odd thousand. We probably had 10,000, and Hearts seemed to have 20,000 with them. They had the whole of the Brim one. They were in the West Enclosure. They were in the main stand, and they were in the Govan. And I was in the Govan as well. In front of the Govan was Jambos. It was an amazing support. And when they're giving the old HEA, RTS, they played us after the part. They beat us 2-0. And I got the old HEA, RTS. This is amazing. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, yeah, but it'll be even bigger if Rangers come back, because we hadn't done anything for 8 years at that point, and it was even bigger when we come back. It was the following season we come back. But I was at all 5 of those games the last time Hearts nearly won the league, and I do feel for them. But they're a big old club. Their support never seemed to be the same after that. After they chucked the league the way they chucked it that season, they never really seemed to recover from it in terms of a support. But they got a chance to do it now. But my score prediction is 3-1, maybe 3-2 to Rangers. I'll go 3-1. Danny will do something. Our head coach will, pun intended, roll the dice, and he'll do something no one's expecting, and it will work. Or maybe I'm just kidding myself on, and this is Hearts' most glorious day yet. One of those kind of crownings before the crowning type games. It'll be an epic, momentous night for the Jambos. But my score prediction, my team prediction, the mainstream media prediction, the title direction, Derek McInnes's suntan, and the next 2 consecutive away fan restrictions hitting us will all be reduced to rubble, exposed, blighted, viciously mocked into a state of permanent early retirement and infinite ridicule by what Danny rules Rangers do at Tynecastle on Monday. Who cares if Kieran Wright's away to be the goalkeeper at Kilmarnock? I'll worry about that in the summer. I don't give a fucking monkeys about our next kit. I'll lose my shit about that on the 17th of May. I don't really care about the ruling we're going to get from the Beaks on how many fans is going to be allowed into Parkhead the following Sunday. That's a problem that I'll save to Wednesday. And sod your corporate golf to Rangers review. Give me the fucking game. Give me the kick-off in Gorgie. I love to chat. I love to share. I need to set down my thoughts about every Rangers game played and upcoming. But it's all just so I can proceed, so I can get on with my life, my Rangers life, and rarely have I felt less need to talk, although the length of this podcast would tell you otherwise, or more desire just to get on with it, just to get to game time, just to see the Teds come down the tunnel, take the pitch, and do what we do best, which is win league titles. Hearts on pole position, and they've been an absolute credit to themselves this season. But there might as well be 34 games left as far as you're concerned. They've got miles to go before they sleep. Miles. For us, this is where we live. This is our house. This situation, this time of the season. Hearts haven't won it since 1960. Hearts have been champions of Scotland 4 times. If we win the league this season, we're 4 short of winning it 60 times. 1960, 60 times we would have won it if we won it 4 more times after winning it this season. I just want to see how we do. I just want to test our mettle. I just want to get a reading on the health of Rangers under the 49ers and under the management of Daniel. And I want this. I want this game. I'm not dreading it. I'm really looking forward to it. And that's maybe dangerous, but absolutely bring it on. Who knows where the time goes? Who knows where the time goes? I was in the shower in home. Don't worry. I was in the shower in the holiday home in Holmfirth, and I was putting on Fairport Convention on my phone. It was one of the kind of like a wet room, more or less, and it was all done in this kind of bronzy brown finish on the walls, and there was fake hanging plants everywhere. It was on the steams. It's trying to give it a kind of jungle, a kind of sexy jungle vibe. It was fantastic, and there was a bit I could use. I could stick my phone in there and let it bang off, echo off the wee kind of walls there to sound it. So I'm having a shower. I've had a few beers the night before, chilled out, on a holiday. I'm going to listen to the holiday music, Fairport Convention. It's Sandy Denny. who knows where the time goes. And I heard this noise, and I was like, fuck. And I don't know if you do this. I think it's maybe to do with, like, if you're just a normal kind of West of Scotland person or a normal Scottish person, holidays when we're kids, the mum would be getting the organised and your dad would be getting drunk, which is making your mum more uptight. Where you get, and that has an effect on you. I've got a strange attitude towards holidays. My wife's like, "What is your problem?" She's from the East Coast. She doesn't really get these things. What's your problem? Every holiday we go on the night before, I don't really chill out. I just start thinking of things that could go wrong. And I think I'm so looking forward to it. I'm so looking forward to the holiday. I like to suffer. I like to punish myself. So holiday's a treat. So I try to find ways that it could go wrong, ways that I don't deserve it or whatever. And I'll fixate on something that could go wrong while we're away. It's just a standard. A lot of folk do this. So I know once I'm away, I don't care. I mean, like, the house could blow up, whatever. But before we went on this holiday, down to the wee holiday home in West Yorkshire, back in the Easter holidays there, and I was listening to my Fairport convention. I would listen to Fairport Convention before I went on that holiday, and I was listening to it on my phone in the kitchen because I'm always making food. Look at the size of me, I'm always making food. I'm always putting dishes away and stuff like that. So I'm in the kitchen a lot. So I'll listen to music sometimes on my phone in the kitchen. But in the kitchen, we've got a smoke detector that's getting a bit faulty. The battery must have gone or something, and it kept beep. But every now and then, like in the middle of the night, it was starting to do this thing. In the middle of the night, it was starting going off. Just 3 short, but like beep beep beep. But you'd get the wee warning. You know what a smoke detector sounds like? A fire alarm, kind of beep beep beep. This wee squeaking noise. Oh Christ, but I started thinking, what if it goes off all the time? What if it starts going off all the time? When we're away, we're attached, so we're neighbours. And they've got a wee lassie and goes to school, and it's going to keep me awake, and what guy's a nurse and stuff. What's it's going to do there nothing? That's going to be absolutely terrible. And I'm like, I'll just take it down. And I'm thinking, but what if the house burns down? When we're away, never mind getting burgled, what if the house burns down? I've taken down the smoke detectors. That's going to void the insurance. So we wouldn't even get it much. And I'm sitting, like kind of 10 o'clock the night before our holidays. Maybe this is why my dad got pissed before we went on holidays. It's because he was going to have to spend a week with the wife and Wayne's. That's why he was going on. He was getting pissed. But I'm reading all stuff about insurance and what happens if you remove your smoke detectors. And my wife's going, what is your problem? She always does the night before we go on holidays. And I'm in the shower at Homeforth. I'm on holiday. I'm chilling out. And I just hear beep. I'm fucking in West Yorkshire. That's just it. And it's Richard Thompson's guitar. He's playing acoustic guitar. And he's doing that thing that you hear with great acoustic. He's moving the fingers up and down. The microphone's right on. The recording's right on the strings, obviously. And you can hear the squeaks of the guitarist's fingers running up and down the metal strings of the guitar, the metallic strings of the guitar. I've been hearing that in the kitchen. I mean, the alarm was going off every now and then, and it still is, and I don't care anymore because I've totally chilled out for my holidays. But it was like, it was just a sound. You thought half the time that was the sound that you were just tuning into Fairport Convention to tune out that smoke detector going off. The sound is on the actual recording. It's on. Who knows where the time goes? And sometimes this is what happens. You hear a sound, and it panics you into thinking you're back in the bad times. And I think that game against Motherwell last week was just that squeak. It's actually part of something beautiful. It's actually part of something going forward that's absolutely beautiful. It's a squeak on Richard Thompson's guitar. It's just reminding you of a smoke detector going off or something that's really panicked you, because you get a bit manic. That transition from having worked for weeks and months, it's a bit much sometimes psychologically to cope with the fact that you're going on holiday and everyone's going to be all right. You're going to really enjoy yourself. It shouldn't be that simple. And I think the panics and the disappointments we've gone through the last 4 or 5 years in terms of league titles, we've panicked last week when we've lost that game against Motherwell. But it's just a sound, just an imitation of all the bad times. Rangers hopefully will go out there on Monday nights and just get us back to the chilled out vibe that is Danny Rule's Rangers winning. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend, folks. And I will talk to you after this epic on Monday night. Thanks, folks.